Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Trish Kazakis. I'm Corporate Nutrition Manager and a Registered Dietitian Nutritionist here at Wegmans. We're so happy that you could join us today. We are kicking off this presentation. I'm going to be turning off my camera in a minute, but I will come back to join Kirby for our Q&A session. So if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll cover those at the end of the presentation. Please note that the information provided today is for informational use only. It's not meant to be a substitute for medical advice or individual nutrition counseling. So please keep that in mind and always work with your healthcare team to find out what's right for you. With that, I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Kirby Branciforte, who is also a registered dietitian and one of our Wegmans nutritionists. And with that, Kirby, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Trish, for that introduction, and thank you all for joining us today. As Trish said, my name is Kirby, and I am so happy to be here today to talk to you about heart health. And as you can probably tell from the title, Love the Foods That Love You Back, we're really going to focus on how to enjoy more of the foods that have a benefit to heart health. Now, when we say heart health, we're really talking about promoting optimal function, so doing the best that it can, protecting your heart from damage, and preventing heart disease. We know that heart disease is the leading cause of death among both men and women. So you might be interested in this for your own self or for a loved one. And there really is so much that we can do to reduce our risk and promote overall heart health through the foods that we eat, which is great news. And this topic truly is very near and dear to my heart, because I have a close family member who had a heart attack years ago who's still managing his heart health. And unfortunately, I also lost a loved one to heart disease. So heart disease runs in my family, and that puts me at risk. So I'm very interested in this. And family history is not something that we can change, of course, but we can change and have an impact on other risk factors, such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and chronic inflammation. So we want to talk about foods that are going to help you do that, help to give you nutrients to help reduce blood pressure, cholesterol, and inflammation while preventing damage and promoting that optimal function. And the more ways that you can find to enjoy them and love them, they do, in fact, promise to love you right back. So if you take one thing away from today, let it be that for heart health, you want to eat more foods with fiber and more foods with healthy fats. I hope you stick around and hear more about it, but if you don't, that is our takeaway. More foods with fiber and healthy fats. Now, we don't just eat these foods for their fiber or just for their healthy fats. It's just that this is a good way to think about those broad categories of food that are linked with heart health. In addition to fiber and healthy fats, they're going to have other nutrients that are good for your heart. And beyond nutrients, research shows us that people who eat these foods on a regular basis have better heart health and better overall health. So that really suggests to us that it's not just these individual nutrients that we'll talk about that are really cool, but it's that package itself. It's the food that is responsible for some of the benefits that we see. Now, there is lots of information out there about what it means to eat for heart health, but common advice that you're going to find online, or certainly what a healthcare provider might give you, is to limit your saturated fat, your added sugars, and your sodium. And all of this is true. This is evidence-based. This is something we need to follow, especially when it's given to you by your doctor. But it's only part of the picture. And we often see that even if the whole picture is given, so you're told to limit these foods, but also include these other great foods, what we find is there's this kind of hyper-focus on limiting these nutrients, and that starts to take center stage. And truly, it's been my own experience, especially with loved ones, is that there's this fixation on these nutrients. And again, it's super important, but it becomes a source of stress and anxiety and confusion, and it makes it so eating is not fun, and that is not what we want, especially because you might be talking about folks that are in a stage of life where they're dealing with decreased appetite, so we don't want to make it harder to enjoy food. So again, not trying to steer away from this guidance. It has to be there. We want to follow it, but we want to round out the way we look at eating for heart health and shift some attention to the foods that we can enjoy and love that are also good for your heart. Starting with fruits, veggies, and whole grains. these are going to be in that bucket of foods with fiber that we talked about. Now, there are other foods with fiber. In fact, all plant foods have fiber, and they're also linked with good heart health. But these they have great research, and they seem to be a pretty easy place for people to start. So if we first start talking about that fiber is a type of carbohydrate that we can't digest, but it offers heart health benefits, like lowering blood pressure, as well as your LDL or your bad cholesterol. In addition to fiber, fruits, veggies, and whole grains have other plant compounds, so these things that the plant makes that also has some health benefits for us. So these are things like antioxidants and substances we call polyphenols. So again, these are like plant compounds that help to reduce damage to your heart muscle that might be caused by free radicals, as well as taming inflammation that, as we said, can put you at risk for heart disease. Fruits, veggies, and whole grains also have these compounds called plant sterols. And you might notice that that word actually looks like cholesterol. And in fact, the substance itself, its physical structure, is very similar to cholesterol. So similar, in fact, that it competes with cholesterol for absorption during digestion. So when plant sterols get absorbed instead, it kind of edges cholesterol out and it gets removed as waste. So that can help to result in a lower LDL cholesterol as well. So what we have here are foods that help reduce those risk factors for heart disease that we talked about, which is amazing. And it's a big deal. And it's kind of what we mean when we talk about food as medicine. So to get the most heart health benefits out of these foods, you want to aim for 5 servings of fruits and veggies a day and 3 servings of whole grains per day. Now keep those recommendations in mind because we are going to come back to them in a little bit. Excuse me. And that brings us to our foods with healthy fats. Now when we say healthy fats, we're talking about the unsaturated fats, and there's 2 kinds, mono and polyunsaturated fats. Both kinds are going to help to improve your cholesterol, especially when they replace saturated fats in your diet. Unsaturated fats can be found in seafood, like salmon, and some plant foods, like avocados and nuts. And your liquid oils will have some unsaturated fats as well. But we really want to focus on a specific type of unsaturated fat that's found in seafood that is strongly linked with heart health. And you may have very likely heard of omega-3s. These are a type of polyunsaturated fat, and they are needed to support electrical signals that help maintain a nice slow and steady heartbeat. So that's that optimal great function that we talked about. They may also help reduce inflammation, lower cholesterol, and they can reduce the risk of a second heart attack in people who have heart disease. Now there are omega-3s in some plant foods. Walnuts are a great example. They've got a nice amount of omega-3s. But the heavy hitter for omega-3s is really seafood. Now, you're especially going to find them in oily fish, like salmon and tuna, but you might be surprised to learn that all seafood, even things like tilapia and shrimp, do have some omega-3s. It's just going to be in a smaller amount. Now, we know not everyone enjoys seafood, or not everybody eats seafood for a variety of reasons. But for those of you who do, or who are at least open to the idea of enjoying more seafood, here's your recommendation. It's 2 servings of seafood per week. So we shared these servings recommendations for seafood, for fruits and veggies, 5 servings a day, 3 servings of whole grains a day. But how close are we coming to meeting these recommendations? Are we anywhere near what we're talking about here? So let's take a look. This chart is from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and it shows our nation's average consumption for whole grains, fruits and veggies, and seafood. That dark blue portion of the bar is the percentage of Americans below the recommended servings. So as you can see, we're 80 to 95% of us are falling short, maybe even 98% if you look at the whole grains, falling short of the recommended servings for fruits, veggies, whole grains, and seafood. So here's my proposal. If we shift our focus to meeting these recommendations, or at least getting more of these foods in our diets, you could potentially have just as much impact on your heart health as you do by focusing on those other things to limit. And it's way more fun to talk about it that way. In fact, when we look at folks that are trying to reduce their blood pressure, we see that when they're following an eating pattern that includes more fruits, veggies, and whole grains, they can actually see a greater improvement in their blood pressure numbers than if they were to just limit sodium. So that is amazing. So, and it really says to us that we want to think about these together, not just in isolation. Now we have to ask the question, we've made this really strong case. These are great foods. They're going to help with heart health. But why aren't we getting enough? And I'm not pointing fingers, because if I point fingers at you, I got to point it at myself too, because I'm sure I make part of those blue bars up at some point. So we want to talk about why we might not be getting these foods and address some of the common barriers that we know folks, even myself, struggle with. So maybe you're in this camp. I really want to, but starting with some myths that might be kind of getting in our way of enjoying certain foods. And there's two here that we wanted to address because we hear them quite a bit, starting with sugar in fruit. So the sugar that you find in fruit is naturally occurring, and it's part of this whole package of nutrients that we just talked about that can support heart health. And it's a whole food, which we know if you enjoy it more regularly, that is also linked with heart health. So it's not the naturally occurring sugar in fruit that we're concerned with when we're thinking of heart health. It's the added sugars. When we say, when you hear people say watch your sugars, it's really, we're thinking about added sugars. So added sugars are things like table sugar or honey that are not naturally occurring. They're added to your foods and beverages. And we do see risk for heart disease goes up with excessive consumption of added sugars, not with naturally occurring sugars found in foods like fruit. So that we don't want to stop folks. And we hear a similar thing when it comes to fat and avocados and nuts. We'll say, I would eat those, but aren't they really high in fat? And yeah, but if we think back to what we just shared, they're high in those unsaturated, heart-healthy fats. And I gotta tell you, I have not met a person who has found that they have, heart disease, and it was due to the fact that they had avocados and nuts, right? So these are things that are great to include in your diet, and like anything, you're not going to have piles of them, just like you wouldn't sit down and have an entire bag of apples. So these are just something that are great to incorporate into an overall pattern of eating. So those are a couple of myths that we see. And then here's something I hear a lot, is that people want to make the healthiest or the better choice, and they kind of get a little paralyzed here. And then sometimes might feel if they can't make the healthiest choice, they just don't have anything at all. And a great example of this is iceberg lettuce. And I am like a big defender of iceberg lettuce. Folks that know me know this about me. So I often hear people say, well, that doesn't really count as a veggie, or it has no nutrition, neither of which are true, by the way. And then they're like, I think I'm supposed to be eating kale. I heard kale is like the thing I'm supposed to have. That's the superfood, right? But I don't like kale. So then what happens? They don't have any leafy greens, and that's certainly not what we want either when we think about the fact that we're not getting enough of our fruits and veggies in our diet. So let's just think about, we're not meeting the recommendations here, so don't let these concerns get in your way. So when it comes to making the healthiest choice, the healthiest fruit and vegetable, the healthiest seafood, the healthiest nut is the one that you're going to eat. And it's the one that you're going to enjoy and that you can sustain enjoying. So certainly when you're looking at, thinking about what's the better choice, then you might start thinking about those things like your saturated fat, your sodium, and added sugars. But at the end of the day, whichever form, whichever kind you enjoy is a great healthy choice for you. So we don't want to get hung up in these things. But on top of all of this, right, we have these barriers, these personal barriers that are very real that folks experience, and we definitely want to acknowledge that these can be a challenge. And we see time and time again, folks want to include more of these foods in their diet, especially with fruits and veggies, and they're running up against these barriers. And you can experience more than one of them at a time, and maybe all of them at once. And so it's very overwhelming, and we would say a couple of things to this. One is tackle one at a time, right? Don't try to do it all at once because that is just too much. So pick a barrier that's maybe giving you the most angst or that seems the easiest for you to address, and then start with small steps. For example, maybe you're going to buy family pack of something so that you can get a better unit price and help with the cost. Maybe you're going to try a new form or a new way to cook a veggie. So like maybe you're going to roast it to kind of help find some flavors that you like. Maybe you'll make extra the next time you're cooking so that you can store some and save yourself time later in the week for some convenience. Or maybe you're going to learn a new cooking technique so that you can become more confident in the kitchen. So the point being, take the time you need to knock down these barriers one at a time so that you can make it a little bit easier to incorporate these foods on a regular basis without feeling such stress and such challenge. So now these are things that you can do, but of course, here at Wegmans, we feel like we can help. And we want to work with you, to work together to help you love those foods that will love you back with products, recipes, tools that can help you stop feeling like this nervous little guy here and help you feel like the woman that you see here. Happy, confident, loving your heart. Now, we know it can be overwhelming to shop and to cook, so we're going to try to help narrow in some starter choices for you, starting with a little list that I put together to get you started with some product choices. Now, before I show you them, I want to say that all of these are going to help overcome that taste barrier. Our mission at Wegmans is to help folks live healthier, better lives through exceptional food. So these are all going to taste great. And the rest of them are going to help with convenience or cost or both. So as we chat, I really encourage you to write these down, maybe on a notepad, maybe get out your Wegmans app and start adding them to your shopping list. Bring yourself one step closer to getting these in your home so that you can enjoy them. So I'm going to read through them. I'm going to come back to a couple and just highlight how they help with barriers in my own household. So first, some frozen mixed berries. These are great to have on hand year-round. Some oatmeal, great choice for your whole grain. Some soft whole wheat bread, and we go through an embarrassing number of loaves of this in my home. So I've got 3 boys. We do a lot of sandwiches. Avocados for those healthy fats. These are a great price point as well. Some nut butter. Clementines, a great seasonal pick. They're easy, portable. Kids love them. Tuna, we're going to come back to that one. Some frozen carrots. Any frozen veggie is great. Carrots are the hit in my house right now, so we're going to stick with it until kids change their mind. Broccoli, a big pack of broccoli. Excuse me. Frozen brown rice. And then lastly, a frozen family pack of salmon. So like I said, these all help with barriers in one way or another, but I want to just talk about a couple of them. So starting with that tuna, that's going to count towards your seafood servings, and it's going to give you those omega-3s. It's also convenient and affordable, especially because you can keep it in your pantry without worrying about, throwing money away on something that went bad before you could eat it. So that's a great, convenient, and affordable seafood option, and very versatile. Then our broccoli there, really any big pack of fresh veggies I think is great. For us, we always get a big bag, we roast it on a sheet pan, and then we'll have some of it for dinner, so it's a side. Maybe we're going to add it to some pasta, and then we have leftovers, so it becomes an affordable and convenient option for later in the week. So maybe I might scramble it up with some eggs, or I really enjoy roasted veggies cold as well. And then this rice, this frozen brown rice, I think I talk about this every single class that I teach because I'm just in love with it. It's my one convenience item that I personally think works great for families. For me, there's something very stressful about trying to get rice on the stove with evening chaos behind me. So this is done in 3 minutes in the microwave, and the quality is really incredible. So this is a really convenient way to add whole grains to our dinner. Now, if we move on to, again, kind of thinking back to some of those barriers, those cooking skills and feeling confident in the kitchen, we chose a couple of recipes and cooking techniques that you might want to try your hand at to make great tasting foods that include or great tasting recipes that include foods for heart health. So avocado toast is a favorite. This one's it's got whole grain, your avocados for your healthy fats, which also count towards your fruits and veggies. And this one actually uses our Wegmans organic eggs, which, believe it or not, have omega-3s in them, and that's due to the feed that is given to the chicken. So this is a really great recipe, nice quick breakfast in the morning. The escarole and beans recipe is another favorite. It's got leafy greens, which are packed with nutrients that are good for heart health, some of which we didn't even talk about, like calcium, magnesium, potassium. And then those beans are some of the plant food that's got that fiber we talked about, which will help to lower LDL cholesterol. That recipe actually only has 5 ingredients, and it's done in 15 minutes. So that's a nice one for busy weeknights. And then to get you more comfortable in the kitchen, we have lots of great cooking techniques on Wegmans.com. One of my favorite is stir fry. The family loves stir fry recipes, and it is actually so much easier than I think folks might think. So it's a very easy fallback recipe, and it really sets the stage for including foods that we know are good for heart health. So you're starting with veggies, and here you see a nice convenience item, our veggie stir-fry blend, which is delicious. And then you may add a protein there. And for this, I'd suggest some shrimp. Shrimp stir-fry is great, and it's going to help you meet your seafood recommendations for the week. And then maybe you round it out with some brown rice for your whole grains. So really great tools here. And of course, you can find all of these on Wegmans.com for getting you comfortable bringing some of those foods to life at the table that are good for heart health. And then lastly, I wanted to point out a few resources we have to help on your heart health journey. First, talking about wellness keys. We have Wegmans wellness keys. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, these are little icons that we have on our products and our recipes that are going to tell you a little something about the product or recipe's nutrition or ingredients. So we know that most folks can easily identify if something's a fruit, something's a vegetable, something is seafood, but whole grains are a little trickier, and that's why we created our Wegmans Whole Grain Wellness Key. That's going to tell you that a product or a recipe has at least a half a serving of whole grains. We also have a heart healthy wellness key, which you see here, on products and recipes that meet the criteria for a heart healthy claim, which I will tell you how to find more information about that heart healthy claim, but this is going to indicate some things about nutrients such as sodium. So it's a great way to find products and recipes that would fit a heart healthy lifestyle. Now, the great thing about these keys is that you can filter your online search for products or recipes by these keys. So you can just get results that carry one of these keys. So that's a really great way to kind of narrow your search and make shopping a little bit easier. And lastly, a few resources on our Feel Your Best pages. If you visit Wegmans.com/Feel Your Best, you will be brought to this landing page you see here. This is our Feel Your Best page. And we're going to look at that section that you see there called Balanced Meals and Nutrition. First, if you look there and you click on Wegmans brand, that's where you're going to find the information on the criteria for our Heart Healthy Wellness Key, along with our other wellness keys and some other packaging claims you might see. But if you want to take an even deeper dive into heart health, which I hope you do, we have a whole section for you. So again, under that Balanced Meals and Nutrition section, you'll see something called Whole Body Health. Click on that. You'll find this page with lots of great info there, including some on heart health. And you might recognize our happy, confident, heart-healthy woman there. And so that's where you'll find our heart health pages. And again, lots of great information there about foods that are linked with heart health, like leafy greens and salmon, and just inspiration for eating your way to a healthy heart. So we hope that this helps you with some education, some tools, and inspiration to include more of those foods with fiber, more foods with healthy fats for heart health, so that you can love the foods that will love you and love your heart right back. And with that, we shall, I'm going to end the show here and stop and go over to our Q&A. There we go. Sorry, it took me a minute there with the clicking.
Great job, Kirby. Thank you so much. And there's been a lot of interest and questions in the chat. One that I'm going to cover really quickly for folks. Some folks have asked about the slide and or the recording. The recording will be posted on the Feel Your Best page, specifically the Heart Healthy one that Kirby just shared with you, hopefully within the next week. So you will have access to review it again. The other thing I know, I'm going to toss one question to Kirby. We've had some questions about diabetes. One being somebody said diabetes runs in the family and was wondering if there are some foods that could help to prevent it. And then there were some other specific questions around diabetes. And I'm just going to toss out, we actually have a Living with Diabetes section on the Feel Your Best page. So for some of those questions, please use that resource. And Kirby, go ahead and answer that question about what can I do to help prevent?
So when it comes to preventing diabetes, that's the great news here is that we see great success when people focus on two lifestyle factors, which is a healthy pattern of eating and physical activity. And so a great resource, I think, is the American Diabetes Association. They have unbelievable information on what healthy eating really looks like, especially when you're considering eating to prevent diabetes. So that would be ada.org. You can find some great information there. And then, of course, what Trish shared on our Feel Your Best pages that we shared, there's a section on special diets and eating approaches. And you can find some great information there on, it's called Living with Diabetes, but it's great information for anybody. And it will give you some guidance on building your plate in a way that will support healthy blood sugar management and some guidance on general overall healthful food choices, which by the way, also happen to be good for heart health. So hopefully those resources can help people kind of explore and get a sense of what types of factors they might want to start working on, particularly when it comes to a healthy pattern of eating and getting some more movement in their day. So great question.
And also connecting with your doctor or a dietitian in the community that might be able to sit down with you one-on-one. Absolutely. Here was an interesting question, Kirby. What about guacamole? Would guacamole count as a way to get avocado in the diet because it tends to last a little bit longer?
All right, how long do we have? Because I could talk guac all day. So yes, absolutely, guacamole counts. In fact, like we like to share with folks that, things that are made from any of these foods count. So if it's your guacamole that's made from avocado, so it's going to count as fruit and vegetable. It's also going to give you some of those healthy unsaturated fats. And what it really, the question that comes up is, well, how much can I have? So generally, the serving size of guacamole is 2 tablespoons. I usually more than 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to say that, it does count, and it's just a mashed up avocado. So it counts, and it's a great addition to a heart-healthy pattern of eating.
Absolutely. Great tip. Another question somebody had was around fruit. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to get too much fruit? This person said the family loves fruit, but veggies not so much. Mm-hmm. So what would you have to say to that?
So generally speaking, usually when it comes to fruits and veggies, we just say, get as much as you can. But when it comes to fruit, there are definitely some nuances there, particularly if you are managing something like diabetes, where you have to pay attention to the amount of carbohydrates. It's not that you can't have them. This might be paying more attention to how much you're having at once. And then there's certain people that might have trouble digesting certain fruits, and some of the sugars in fruit, there's definitely some individualization that happens there. So generally speaking, if it's not edging out other foods, so if you're eating fruit and nothing else, so if you're having a plate of fruit for dinner and you're not getting some of those other foods like your whole grains or your healthy proteins and things like that, it's generally not a big concern as long as you're fitting in all of the other foods and nutrients that we know support health. So and we know most people are probably not getting those recommendations, so generally don't see it to be a big concern.
Absolutely. And Kirby, do you think you have time for one more quick question?
Oh, yes. I didn't even, it's going by fast. Yeah, let's squeeze one in.
Someone was asking, do both wild and farm-raised salmon have omega-3?
Yes. Short answer is yes. And it can differ with, especially with any animals that are given food. Some of their nutrient content will reflect what they're fed. And even though there might be some differences there, it's still a lot. It's still a lot of omega-3s. It's still a great way to get your omega-3s. So whichever one fits your budget, your taste buds, that's the one that will give you the heart-healthy omega-3s and be a great choice for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kirby. Oh. And one more. Question. Real quick, because some folks were asking about some specific products that we might not carry. If you ever do have a question about a product that you'd like to see, our customer care team would be the ones to reach out to. You can do that by calling 1-800-WEGMANS or through Wegmans.com. That's something that they talk very closely with our category merchants. So for those of you that are interested, or if you have other questions, that's always a great resource to reach out to.
Absolutely.
Kirby, any closing thoughts before we wrap up for today?
Just, eat foods with fiber, eat foods with healthy fats. And just thank you all so much for joining us. And we hope that this was helpful and that you feel inspired to go eat the foods that will love you back. So thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kirby. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.